NATO sends out fighter planes to stop Russian planes because they fear Russia will attack Ukraine. It comes before an important meeting of NATO defense ministers today and tomorrow in Brussels. Officials are trying to figure out how to get more weapons to Ukraine and talk about how spy balloons pose a threat. 3 Russian warplanes flew dangerously close to the borders of Poland and Lithuania, so NATO sent out fighter jets to stop them. The Netherlands sent out a fleet of F-35s to stop the Russian planes from flying near the Kaliningrad enclave, which is between Poland and Lithuania. In a statement, the Netherlands Defense Ministry said, the unknown plane, which was coming from Kaliningrad, got close to the Polish NATO area of responsibility. After figuring out what it was, it turned out to be 3 planes. A Russian Il-20M Kut-A with 2 Su-27 flankers following it. The Dutch F-35s kept a safe distance from the formation and turned over the job of keeping it safe to NATO partners. Russia calls its reconnaissance plane the Ilyushin Il-20M, while NATO calls it the Il-20M Kut-A. NATO calls the Sukhoi Su-28, Su-27 flankers. There are 8 Dutch F-35s in Poland until the end of the month. It comes before an important meeting of NATO defense ministers today and tomorrow in Brussels. Officials are trying to figure out how to get more weapons to Ukraine and talk about how spy balloons pose a threat. The meeting at the alliance's headquarters in the Belgian capital is happening before the first anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. It also comes after the U.S. military shot down a number of things in Western airspace, including a suspected Chinese spy balloon. Ben Wallace, who is in charge of defense, is expected to attend the meeting in Brussels on Wednesday. He has said that Britain will do a security review of the situation. Jens Stoltenberg, the Secretary General of NATO, said before the meeting that the defense ministers would work to strengthen the alliance's defense and deterrence, increase industrial capacity, and restock members' munitions stocks, as well as intensify and keep up our support for Ukraine. At a press conference on Monday, he said, "It is clear that we are in a race of logistics. Important things like ammunition, fuel, and spare parts must get to Ukraine before Russia can take the lead on the battlefield. Speed will save lives." The head of NATO said, "We're already seeing the start of a new Russian offensive in Ukraine." He also said that he thought the 2-day meeting would talk about sending fighter jets to Kiev. British military chiefs say that Putin has told his troops to move forward in most sectors, but they haven't been able to make much progress on the Ukrainian frontline. The Ministry of Defense, MOD, said on Tuesday that the Russians have not gathered enough offensive combat power on any one front to have a decisive effect. Its intelligence report said that Wagner Group mercenaries likely made further small gains around the northern edges of the heavily contested town of Bakhmut. But the Ukrainians are still defending themselves, and the Russian advance to the south has probably not gone very far. The Ministry of Defense said that the Russians are making continual offensive efforts in Kremina-Svatov, but that they are too small to make a significant breakthrough. Overall, the current operational picture suggests that Russian forces are being told to move forward in most areas, but that they have not gathered enough offensive combat power on any one axis to have a decisive effect, the MOD said. Sources in the defense sector think that the Russian president's feared spring offensive might not happen at the same time on both sides of the front line. But using conscripts to attack in certain areas as military activity goes up could be a way to see where the Ukrainian position is weak. For all of our sakes, Sunak needs to give Zelensky his wings now. Says Carol Malone, "It's hard to say what a great leader is until you see one. This week, we saw one of the best under the old beams of Westminster Hall. His name was Volodymyr Zelensky. Even Rishi Sunak is shorter than him, but as soon as he started talking, it was clear that he was a giant among men. It's not surprising that his people would follow him to hell and back, and it's possible that they already do. This week, he came to Britain, full of gratitude, humility, and respect for what the UK has done and is still doing for his troubled country. He said it in a moving way that we had been with him since the war began. He spoke very warmly about Boris Johnson, who, he said correctly, had gotten other countries to support Ukraine when it seemed impossible to do so. He talked about how honored he was to meet with King Charles and how our king was an Air Force pilot and that every Air Force pilot in Ukraine was a king. I cried then. Even as he talked, people were still dying in his beloved Ukraine. And it has to stop, not just for the sake of his country and its people, which is reason enough, but also for the safety of the rest of the world. And the only way that will ever happen is if the West pulls itself together and gives him the weapons he needs to beat Russia, which is planning another big attack right now. This great man was literally begging for fighter planes, which he called wings for freedom, not only to push the Russians back but also to protect Western tanks, troops, civilians, and what's left in Ukraine. But it doesn't help to give him planes, tanks, and other weapons slowly or after the war is over. He needs what he needs right now to finish the job. If not, the killing will go on for years, which will make us all more at risk. Vladimir Putin went into a country and tried to destroy it because it wanted democracy and freedom. Why wouldn't he do it somewhere else if he wins this war? Zelensky went to Brussels to beg the EU for help, but they are just as slow as everyone else. If it had been up to the EU, Zelensky would have been left with nothing. So far, Russia has made no promises. So does the EU. But they have to send planes now, even if it's just for their own good. Even if European governments don't care that Ukrainians are dying needlessly, it is still their job to protect their own people from the crazy Putin, who, if he wins this war, will feel more confident to take over any other country he wants. Britain doesn't have a lot of fighter planes, but we can make more. Ukraine is unable. This week, Rashid looked very proud of himself as he stood next to a former comedian who has become one of the world's best leaders because he has had to. Let's hope he wasn't trying to boost his falling popularity here by using Zelensky and the killings in Ukraine as good photo ops, because we will never forgive him for that. For all of our sakes, he needs to give Zelensky his wings. #Slava Ukraini. Hopeless that Rufus is actually Andy. Rufus Sewell plays Prince Andrew in a new Netflix show about the car accident interview with Emily Maitlis and Prince Andrew. Now it has to be said that Rufus Sewell is a god. He has molten brown eyes, a strong jaw, and cheekbones that reach the sky. He's not just hot, he's super sexy hot. He's the opposite of Prince Andrew in every way. So, even though he is a great actor, how can he play the round-faced, pot-bellied, puffed-up Andrew convincingly? Netflix says that Sewell's jaw and cheeks will be filled out to make him look more like Andrew. No matter how much they fill them out, Sewell will never look as bad as the sweaty prince. Ed Miliband doesn't have a bad life. I'm not surprised that Labour's most committed socialists don't mind getting something for free from the government. This week, we found out that Ed Miliband, the man with 2 kitchens, accepted £350 worth of free tickets and food from the Royal Shakespeare Company for a play at the Barbican. Considering that his wife, Dame Justine Thornton, is a High Court judge who probably makes £200,000 a year and that Miliband earns £84,000 as an MP and £79,235 for a second job, I'd say they are rich. So why accept free stuff? Hypocrites in Labour are always talking about the gap between the richest and poorest people in Britain and how the poorest people need to be protected from the nasty rich. Yet, 2 kitchens, Miliband is getting free tickets and food from an organization that is paid for by taxpayers. How awful it is to get old. Madonna said that she was a victim of ageism, misogyny, and sexism after people were shocked to see her at the Grammys this week. No, love, you're just a victim of your own vanity and fear of getting older. We wouldn't have known Madonna was on stage in LA if we hadn't been told. She had a big face and big lips. She's unrecognizable, and not because she is 64 years old. It's because of the stupid things she's done to herself to try to stay young looking. She doesn't look young, either. She looks desperate, sad, and strange. People who say that all that matters is that she likes what she sees in the mirror are wrong. Sorry, it's not. If the singer really likes what she sees in the mirror, there's a lot more wrong with her than a few too many fillers and injectables. Madonna used to show other women how to be tough, strong, and badass. So why has she given in to the idea that women need to look young for people to take them seriously? Because it is ageist and sexist to do that. It takes courage to talk about cancer. Huge respect to Kenny Logan, who said this week that he's still having trouble with his sex life even though he's no longer sick with prostate cancer.